Hey, what's going on, everybody? So I know JD and the Jets, they're hammering away, trying to take a look at the pro personnel for free agency. Very interesting offseason for us. Not only do we have 28 players on our end, either restricted, exclusive, or unrestricted free agents, but just heading into the offseason, we're at a point in time where I don't think there's been any recent offseason in kind of close memory, dating back to the most recent quarterbacks we've invested in or just new coaching staffs, where we've kind of had this luxury of seeing if we, how essentially we want to approach the offseason. We're not necessarily going for an all in approach, but we're not looking for stopgaps or anything either. We really do kind of need significant contributors to come in and make an immediate impact for us, which is always the hope, with any pick. But, more so this offseason than anything else, we need to make sure we get a full, true, and excuseless evaluation of Zach Wilson and the rest of the team, of course. So, wanted to cover 10 players that I had from pro personnel free agency that I think could particularly be either good fits, or at least provide us those good return on investments that we're looking for. So ideally, the game here was I'm going to actually run through my mock draft for the first time pretty much ever. Haven't done one myself personally before, in a later video coming up. But just to kind of get some background, these are the players that I think we might be able to snag and bring in. Not sure if they're all hit. I'm sure some of these guys will get tagged or something crazy. But either way, here we go. So I tried to get them at positions in need, by the way, so we can kind of go best player available, but it is what it is. So the first player, and I've heard this from Jake Asman. I've heard it from a few other draft scouts, and then just kind of taking a look and doing some research stat-wise, just kind of taking a look at some of the games that I used to remember, or at least some ones in recent memory. Justin Reed, safety from Houston. Now, it's been a down year in 2021, and PFF didn't grade him kindly either. But the 2 years prior, keep in mind, these are all players essentially from the 2018 draft class. He stood out on a very porous team now, for quite a bit. And again, this season's been a bit of a backslide for him. But almost nobody really performed well on that Houston Texans team. So you would have to imagine that the outlier is really this season and not his first two. So I think he slides in, and we kind of like to play the safeties as we've had when we've had Todd Bowles and Rex Ryan, to certain degrees, where we like them to be interchangeable. That way we can mix up and do whatever it is that we need to do. The thing is, we might be able to get him at a discount since he hasn't had a excellent season for himself for his standards heading into the off season. So maybe we pick him up on the cheap, give him 2-3 years, and watch him flourish in our system. Food for thought. The next player would be Jordan Whitehead, safety from Tampa Bay. So kind of the same situation. He's not necessarily the same size speed component that Justin Reed is, but we've seen him perform on a very good Tampa Bay defense, and he doesn't look like he's out of place whatsoever. So significant contributor, but he's not necessarily somebody that I think everybody, from a general NFL fandom standpoint, would be aware of. So we can pick him up for the fly. He might be a player that can come in and I could see us potentially cutting ties with the Ashton Davis, depending on who all we pick up and how the draft goes. So maybe this is somebody where you look for as an upgrade, depth-wise on the team. If nothing else, then maybe we can get him and Justin Reed, and we kind of pair them up together as our starting safeties of the right now. And then depending on who we potentially come out of the draft with, have somebody to kind of groom in the wings. My third player is going to be Philadelphia edge, Derek Barnett. So he was somebody, and I remember in the draft thinking we should really probably target this guy. And I want to say we were picking somewhere in like the late tens, like somewhere around 18 to like 24 or something like that. And he was somebody that I was thinking maybe we can get this guy, and he'll develop, and we'll have a crazy line between who do we have at the time? Maybe like Muhammad Wilkerson, Sheldon Rankin, Sheldon Richardson. But either way, his career hasn't panned out and taken off like we've expected. But we've seen games where he's definitely popped. And coaching up the linebackers and defensive line is essentially what the genetic makeup of this team is all about. They do the same thing from all three standpoints, but when you talk about the bread and butter, what their scheme is supposed to be, that speaks to how well they've been able to done with the players they've been able to amass and kind of coach up on the line, as well as the linebacking core. And I think Derek Barnett might be able to kind of get unleashed, so to speak, if we were able to pick him up, or at the very least, he'd be a very, very good rotational player for us on the line. And everything to me this offseason kind of points to us um, kind of getting what that defensive line rotation is really going to look like. We want high ceiling starters, high floor starters that's going to flourish the entire season, as well as having high ceiling backups who will come in, be able to contribute right away, but still essentially has that starter level talent in case injuries happen to strike us again. My next player is going to be, and this came courtesy of Jets X Factor. I didn't realize how porous our inside defensive line depth would have been, specifically as the tackle spot, of course. Um, Defensive tackle is essentially a major need for us, considering we only have Quinnen Williams. He's also coming off a bit of an injury, but nothing, career, season ending, life ending, anything like that. Um, a couple players I think that we might be able to slot in here. Uh, Buffalo defensive tackle Harrison Phillips. He's had very, very good seasons in Buffalo so far. Now, their defense has essentially fallen off at certain points, but when they bounce back and everybody's clicking and everything, you see Harrison Phillips kind of pop off tape a little bit. And again, these are all players that essentially for me are going to be under 27, which means that if they do flourish, we can offer a contract if we only give them really like a 2 year essentially up front. We can kind of continue to build upon that by offering them a secondary contract after the fact if we're talking about prove it deals essentially. BJ Hill might be one of those guys that can come in and offer tremendous value for us, as well as just kind of stealing somebody that, of course, Buffalo probably really doesn't want to lose. But when you look at their situation, most of the playoff teams are going to be in kind of cap purgatory, so to speak, and they can't retain everybody. So this is really where we can snag in and take a look at a lot of those players that performance should meet whatever the contract standards that we're going to offer to them will look like. My next player is going to be Cincinnati defensive tackle BJ Hill. I think he's very underrated. There's a lot of players that came from Cincinnati that essentially I feel like they kind of get looked over a lot, especially when they fell out a little bit. Now with their more recent playoff success coming up, I'm sure a lot of those players will get looked at a lot more again. But BJ Hill can't say a lot, enough good things about, especially after kind of catching up on the PFF side, again, watching some game film and stuff. He's a tough dude, plays with a little bit of power, and I think that's the one trend that you essentially see when it comes to Robert Saleh and his defenses, and then in terms of where we get Joe Douglas's background from, the Eagles front, the Ravens front. They don't mind having some finesse type players, but everything's kind of about cracking people in the mouth and getting back there with a bit of power. So these are players that I think from a scheme perspective might be able to slot in pretty good. And again, these may be rotational players. Maybe they can crack the starting lineup. But in any event, this is stuff that should make our defensive line pretty much top notch. An interesting selection for me. I'm kind of going off the grid here a little bit. Tight end. My option would be for Cleveland tight end David Njoku. Now, this guy to me has always popped off. His athleticism traits from the combine were ridiculous. There's been a number of amazing grabs that we've seen from him. His problem has been consistently fitting in, or from a schematic standpoint, maybe not fitting in with what teams prior were looking to do with them. So the thought process here for me is he could potentially be an average to low end starter as of right now. I think we've seen with this most recent season that he could be a very good starter in the league. Now, if something clicks, the perfect scheme, maybe just him and the quarterback gets along really well, whatever it is, the sky is really the ceiling for the guy. He hasn't lost any athleticism, even with some injury concerns and things coming up. And he offers something that we haven't had with a lot of that athleticism and probably forever. The most athletic quarterback I think that, tight end that maybe we've had in the last decade would probably have to be like Dustin Keller, maybe. Other than that, though, we've never had anybody that's kind of broken the mold at that position. So not only would this potentially be a very versatile player for us, pairing him along with expectedly a Trey McBride, or maybe Jeremy Ruckert, whoever it is that we get out of the draft, because we know for sure we're going to end up picking one. This can give us a very different look and opportunity to attack defenses that we haven't had before. Being able to use 12 personnel, which is a little bit foreign territory for us. At the wide receiver position, I'm not dead set on us absolutely needing a wide receiver from free agency per se. Just kind of taking a look at the pool of guys and who probably will or won't make it. I think we can attack it in a draft and do ourselves a favor. But still, ultimately, we probably should grab one. Better safe than sorry. I am one as well. This subscribes to the philosophy. I don't really want anybody to have any excuses this season. My pick would be Dallas wide receiver Michael Gallup. There's been rumors in the past that connected us to him. He was never able to, the trades never ended up coming to fruition. But his numbers speak for himself. He could potentially be a wide receiver one if it was any other offense. But between him playing in that Dallas Cowboys offense and, all the weapons that they've had there all at once, you would never know for sure 100%. This might be the perfect opportunity for us to snag one and take the opportunity to see what that may look like. Now, it would be great to get a surefire starter, excuse me. But this could at the very least be a high-end number two. Now, when you think about trying to keep Elijah Moore maybe in the slot a little bit more, as opposed to, kind of doing splits between outside and then coming back into the slot. You can keep Michael Gallup on the outside with Corey Davis. Gives us two size players. Elijah Moore, shifty. He's able to go and do a bunch of things, kind of do some of those jet sweeps and things that we've seen. And maybe we can get things to flourish a little bit there. He's also a little bit better, I would say, of a catching traffic kind of guy. He'll win a lot of those contested balls, I think, in my opinion. But if that doesn't work out and maybe he doesn't get it, this other player is a long shot to me, but it's somebody that I wanted specifically in this draft as well. Wide receiver has almost been a need for us year in and year out. So every Jets fan has pretty much had one wide receiver that they were like, we absolutely have to have. Michael Williams, Los Angeles. This was the guy for me. Now, I don't know how Chargers potentially let him shake free, but I know the cap situation might not necessarily be the best over there as well. But between franchise tag and stuff, I think it's a long shot. If he does get let go, though, injury situations aside, I think this has to be the top target for us. Personally, being a London Drake fan for the draft, I think this essentially makes sure that we don't get pigeonholed to having to give a player, select a player of that caliber. Size, he has a bit of speed to his game, and he's definitely going to win those contested balls. So this unlocks a whole new dimension for the offense. Might not be the best from a route running component, and we've seen him disappear in some games, but when he's on top of things, he definitely is noticeable. This is a player I think that can definitely elevate what the offense would do. And then finally, we have two more players left. I have Chicago guard James Daniels. Now, statistically, he's rated extremely, extremely well here. And I think this might be a foundational piece that can slide in at right guard. The thought for me is that I think Becton still comes back, obviously, but healthy. We see him come back in good shape. And we see him flourish alongside Elijah Vera Tucker. Now at center, maybe we keep McGovern there. We'll see what happens in the draft. I would love to see Tyler Linderbaum, I think it is. Keep always mixing his name up. But either way, James Daniel could be that position right at the right guard that slides in above average potential. He could potentially be the new Laurent Duvernay-Tardif for us, except we can have him for a few years to kind of build that whole cohesiveness on the line. And then, of course, to finish things off at the tackle spot, we would have Morgan Moses or George Fant potentially still there, or switching Becton, whatever that looks like for us. But either way, I think the guy would be a steal for us if somehow we grab him. And then at the linebacker position, going with Jose Joel from Denver. I think the guy's got a little bit of. I think he's highly underrated. He has a little bit of. I'm drawing a blank. Hold on. Luke Kuechly a bit to his game. Now, crazy comparison, I know, but when we're talking about a little bit of sideline to sideline ability, and then always just happen to kind of be around the ball at the right time, I think this kid is it. This is really just to kind of give us the floor at what we want linebacker play to be at that position for us. Um, Other than that, I think we still see a step up in the game from Jamian Sherwood and Hamza Nasruddin. I don't know if we pick up a Nakobe Dean in the draft or anything like that, but if we invest later on, then it's somebody that at least they can have that veteran presence in that specific group for. I know we got CJ Mosley, but he's not essentially going to be playing the same, off ball linebacker positions as them. So it gives them a direct comparison to kind of look at. And then he's had the success there. So let me know if I'm way off or what you guys' thoughts are on the 10 free agency players that I have. Again, looking forward to dropping off that mock draft for you guys as well. And then prior to that, I'll probably do a video for my top 10 for who I think we should re-sign at our unrestricted free agents as well. But until then, peace out.